I spent a lot of 2020 watching movies, and in response I spent most of 2021 playing games, of which you can see my top 10 to 15ish in my previous video. But I didn't solely play games, I still consumed a lot of other forms of media too. Here's a collection of various movies, TV shows, and books I, consumed, and want to talk about. Overall, I watched 27 movies this year, with 18 being ones I had never seen before. But I started out on a real bad note with Wonder Woman 1984. What a mess that movie was. Poorly written, with not great action. In the same vein, Zack Snyder's Justice League wasn't all that much better. It had better cinematography, for sure, but it was in no way better writing. I did also wind up watching The Suicide Squad, and after the mess that was, every other DCEU movie, Birds of Prey exempt, this one was good. A little too gory for me, but a pretty solid time regardless. I can't say that about most DC movies nowadays. I didn't actually watch any Marvel movies schlock until the very end of the year, where in quick succession I watched Disney's Marvel's Black Widow and Shang-Chi. And you know what? They were both fine. Black Widow less so, but still fine. All these films are adequately filmed and well acted, but they just don't have much going on behind them. They're all so samey. I'm really losing much to talk about Marvel stuff, but also I'm at peak superhero burnout. Maybe Spidey will refresh me when I don't have to submit myself to the plague to watch it. The only times I did risk the plague were for F9 and Dune, which I will be pronouncing Dunk for the rest of the video. F9 came out right after I got vaxxed, and also the theater was empty and I was a lot more confident back then. And the movie was a lot of fun, in the dumb cars go vroom way. They went to space? Han is back for no good reason. Vin Diesel is a bad actor. It's a good time. Dunk, on the other hand, I felt really uncomfortable the entire time. My dad really wanted to see it in theaters, and I tell you what, it was packed and we were the only ones masked. Did not like that at all. The film, on the other hand, was really, really good. It's in the top 3 best 2021 movies I watched for sure. It is so beautiful to watch. They made that coarse and rough and gets all over sand look really pretty, and the soundtrack was excellent. I do have some complaints about the narrative, but also I think I'll have the same complaints about the novel too, so I'll finish reading that first. I just wish I watched it at home, 1, because of the plague, and 2, the IMAX screen was actually pretty low resolution. I think my TV and expensive headphones would have done me better. And speaking of my top 3 favorite films I watched this year, I rewatched the Matrix trilogy for the first time since I was 8 or something. And you know what? Those movies are a blast! The first Matrix might be one of the greatest films ever made. It is peak action film and I loved every second of it. The other 2 definitely have their faults. They are not as tight as the first, but I still wound up really loving them too. Which leads me to The Matrix 4, which again, there is a lot of mess in there. The action wasn't as good as its predecessors, and a bit of the writing was hokey, and the pacing was rough in places, but it was also one of my 2 favorite movies from this year. I love how heavy-handed the messaging is, and I love how hopelessly optimistic the film is. Lana Wachowski used absolutely no subtext, and I love her for it. There's even a cool heist. Also, there's a character with blue hair, and the whole time I could not stop thinking about the blue hair and pronouns mean, but also they're my new favorite character, and I love them. Hello, it's me, slightly closer, but still past me. Upon further reflection, I'd like to bolster my opinion on why I liked The Matrix 4. In the beginning of the film, Neo is stuck in a lifeless job with no real friends and a monotonous schedule where the days blend together. And spoilers, by the end of the film, he's able to escape the monotony and connect with his true love. And as someone who is very much stuck in a similar loop as Neo from the first half, I can't help but fall in love with the idea that maybe, one day, I'll enter the second half. Anyway, here is the best segue in this video. Speaking of blue hair and pronouns, Evangelion finished this year. I still, honestly, can't wrap my head around it. It's over. And not only is it over, 3.0 plus 1.0 Thrice Upon a Time was really good. It had such excellent pacing, the moments in the village were so well done, and the ending made enough sense and managed to wrap things up, again, in a wonderfully hopeful way. I think I need a bit of hope right now. I should rewatch A New Hope. Either way, definitely my top 2 faves this year. You know, in hindsight, a better segue would have been mentioning how 2 long-running series received their 4th film entry this year, or how they're my 2 favorite films from 2021. Too late now. I scripted this weeks in advance. Anyway, for this next segue, the best I've got is I've been subbed to Vice's Waypoint Plus this year, and I've been doing my best to keep up with the movies they watch on their Movie Revisit podcast. They watched all 3 Matrix movies, all 4 Ava movies, although I haven't rewatched them yet, and 2 other movies I wound up enjoying a lot, Thief and Stalker. Thief, the 1981 classic suspense film about a diamond thief, is definitely up there in the best movies overall I watched. They just made movies different back then. They're slower paced, have less action, everything is done with practical effects, and I really enjoyed it. The entire final third, I was on the edge of my seat, not really knowing how everything would play out, even though I was sure it wasn't going to be good for our protagonists. Hello, it's me, slightly closer but still past me. I should also mention the soundtrack by Tangerine Dream is actually superb. I loved it. Okay, back to even further past me. Stalker, on the other hand, well, let's just say I get it. I get why people really like it. There were a lot of moments that I personally thought were brilliant. This, I think, is the first ever Russian film I'd ever seen, and the whole thing is a long, drawn-out, therapeutic look at our 3 main protagonists as they travel into a strange place called the Zone, where an alien visit or asteroid crash has left everything very weird. And did I put enough emphasis on long? Because it is. So if you don't like long, boring shots with people occasionally monologuing, this movie is not for you. I, however, do like long, boring shots with people occasionally monologuing, so the nearly 3-hour runtime kinda shot by for me. The reason I was a bit let down though was I was fresh off of reading the novel Stalker was based off of, Roadside Picnic. Speaking of books, I only read 4 this year, half as much as in 2020. The last novel I read was also the Russian novel Roadside Picnic, which I also read because of Waypoint. This one did something to me. Coming in at just short of 200 pages, Roadside Picnic is such an easy read, and I could not put it down. The novel is mainly about this one guy, Red, a stalker who travels into these zones where aliens visited and left behind a whole bunch of gunk. Red goes in, grabs anything valuable, and tries not to get killed or maimed by any of the various hazards the aliens stained the planet with. And I think this novel has changed me. The longer I am away from it, the more I like it. It is so tense, the world is so fascinating, and all the characters are various levels of scummy, but you can't help but root for them. I really, truly love this book, and despite the various other adaptations I watched this year, none of them came close to how much I enjoyed the world of Roadside Picnic. There's only 2 other books I want to mention here. I read the Satoru Iwata collection of writings, Ask Iwata. It is very short, but filled with really great info from the late, great president of Nintendo. As a big Nintendo guy, nay, as a big video game guy, Ask Iwata was a fascinating and sometimes heartbreaking read. Rest in peace, Iwata. I also read a Star Wars book, Empire Strikes Back, From Another Point of View. It's a collection of short stories that take place around the events of Star Wars Episode 5. There are some really good ones, a few not so great ones, but one of my favorite authors/YouTubers, Hank Green, and one of my favorite authors/podcasters, Austin Walker, both have stories in it. And there were some real good ones, like the one with Obi-Wan, or the one with the guy who meets up with Boba Fett, or a really cool one with the TIE Fighter pilot. But maybe a few too many that take place on Hoth. It was a really good time though. The first 2 weeks of 2021, I would read a story or 2 before bed. But Stalker wasn't the only Roadside Picnic adaptation I watched because of Waypoint. I also watched the anime Other Side Picnic because at this point, why not? I watched 16 TV shows this year, but Other Side Picnic is notable for being one of the only 3 anime, and also by being surprisingly good. I really liked that it featured adults. And the Monster of the Week show about 2 adult girls who will inevitably fall in love is like so unique for anime, and very much something I'm bound to enjoy. The other anime I watched were My Hero Academia Season 5, which was pretty good, not my favorite season, but whatever, and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, the story of the Joestar family, Part 6.
Welcome to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, the story of the Joestar family.
And I tell you what, watching Part 6 right after finishing My Hero 5 did not do My Hero any favors. JoJo has such great pacing, incredible characters, and amazing action scenes that generally textbook fights in My Hero were boring in comparison. And I like My Hero Academia. It is one of the few animes I still watch. But JoJo, man. JoJo. Jolene, Hermes, FF, my beloved. Can't wait to see how y'all react to what else happens in Part 6. It gets wild. Hello, it's me. Slightly closer but still past me. Turns out I completely forgot that I watched Yuru Camp Season 2 this year, which is wild because I loved it, and I made an entire video about it. Then I made a slideshow version of the video because it got copyright claimed to all heck. Either way, this is why I write down everything I watch, because I will forget it. I just forgot to write this one down, I guess. Back to even further past me. This was also the year I finally got around to watching Nathan For You, one of the best shows ever made. Nathan Fielder has such an air of awkwardness about him, but he's able to utilize it so excellently. Every time I just had to see what he did in the next episode. And seeing the wild moments in context, like the gas station attendant who drank his nephew's pee, or finally watching Dumb Starbucks in its entirety. Comedy gold. And the final episode, the series finale, is a movie-length epic that makes no sense and has a terrible climax, but Nathan and the team made it work. Oh yeah, also because of Waypoint, I wound up marathoning through seasons 1 and 2 of Ted Lasso, a show that I may or may not have procured by dubious means. Anyway, I mostly enjoyed it, but in later episodes of season 1 and most of season 2, the show started relying too heavily on reference humor. I already don't care much for reference humor, and I didn't even get a lot of the references they were making, leading to a far less enjoyable experience. I'll still watch season 3 though. The last comedy I watched was I Think You Should Leave Season 2. I loved Season 1, and Season 2 is like, almost as good. It's been the source of many of the best memes from 2021, to shirts with amazing patterns, to everyone's favorite sloppy steaks. It's a great time, can't wait for Season 3. The last standout I want to talk about is The Owl House. I don't usually watch children-aimed cartoon shows anymore, but much like Other Side Picnic, the promise of a queer romance pulled me in, and I enjoyed it a lot. It's like not my favorite show, but it's also really nice seeing this type of representation from the homophobic monolith that is Disney. Wait? Oh, yeah. Disney did cancel it, didn't they? Yeah, sounds about right. Speaking of Disney, everything else I watched was either Marvel or Star Wars. The Star Wars stuff, pretty good. I liked the Monster of the Week style Bad Batch a lot, and there were some really great moments in Visions. And some pretty low lows, too. As for the Marvel crap, well, none of the TV shows did it for me. All of them had pretty dissatisfying endings. WandaVision's thing got stale after a while, plus the real stuff wasn't as interesting. Falcon and the Winter Soldier was just boring military propaganda. Loki had a neat premise, but then they went in a different direction than I was expecting, and I didn't like it as much. And aside from Haley Steinfeld's performance, I wasn't able to really latch on to anything in Hawkeye. And then there's What If, ... which is just really bad. The voice acting was trash, the writing was trash. The best episodes were the last couple, where they could just rely on fight choreography for the bulk of it. And I mean, aside from What If, none of these were bad, but they were all just super mediocre. Anyway, yeah, that was the bulk of other stuff I found interesting that I watched and or read in the year of our Lord 2021. Thanks for watching. Follow me on all my socials, all at Mario8th, and links are in the doobly-doo. I hope you enjoyed. See you next time.